Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Human Factor Security Podcast with me, your host, Jenny Radcliffe, the People Hacker. I am absolutely delighted to welcome my guest today, Cary Hendriks. Hi Cary, how are you?
Hi Jenny, I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, Cary's been on. He'll be known to any of you who listen to the Tinfoil Hat Club and the Lockdown Diaries, because Cary's one of my regulars on those shows, which we do need to revive again soon. Now we're in Lockdown 3, The Revenge. But I wanted to bring you on the show, Cary, and really talk about, your career and everything, because I mean, you've had an amazing career and you do so much. So I appreciate your time. Do you want to just let people know, if they don't know what you do already, sort of what you do at the moment and what your role is, and then we'll talk about your career and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Currently, I'm the Global Operations Director for a small cyber company in Glasgow called ID Cyber. So, and
you even say that with a Scottish accent.
I have to.
ID Cyber. Sorry, apologies to all my Scottish friends.
No, it's and as you said, I've had a very varied career, did loads of different things, and when we started, and I started this with a business partner, a retired police officer as well, and we really started the company to pay back to the community everything that we've learned and stuff that we've done. So we've gone on a massive education process. So we've gone on a massive education process, and trying to get young ones, people that are deciding, like, how am I going to get into cyber? What do I need to do? How do I get there? Is there a 5-day course that I can do and voila, I'm in cyber? And it's like, no, we have to go through a process that, I just didn't end up in cyber like overnight. It was a very long process.
The Cyber Week's coming up soon. I know we're having a chat on that, but do you want to explain, because you really are trying to facilitate, I think, youngsters getting into cyber in Scotland. And you and I were talking a week or two ago about this, and talking about, I suppose you call it diversity, wouldn't you? Access to opportunity within the industry.
Yeah. So the kind of things that we've started. Now we're a Cyber Essentials certification body. Yeah. So we do basic cyber essentials for organizations, but through our university education program, we're trying to get the next groups up to get experience in that. Yeah. Because as you know, when you come into cyber, you need to have 20 years experience in some or other form of thing, and you're only 22. So so it's a ridiculous situation. So and it's just trying to just make it for everybody. But sometimes you have to learn and improvise really quickly, because you get dumped in the deep end. Sometimes there isn't a script to follow. There isn't a scenario that you've encountered before, and you have to think on your feet, and sometimes it's really, really important, because you have colleagues in play as well, and it's not play as in we're doing a pen test and anything. It is like, this is serious business. If somebody gets caught, they're probably going to get killed or anything else. So it's serious business, and you can't afford to make big mistakes or stupid mistakes. You have to be really careful. But when you may have a plan all worked out, but see, when the first bop lands on your nose, the plan goes out the window.
But it's interesting to me, this, and I think we should really talk about your background a little bit, because when you say, if you make a mistake, someone can actually be killed, or there could be someone, the wrong person goes to prison, or the wrong person gets away. I don't think people realize sometimes how easily but how quickly the cyber side can get that serious, you know, how quickly security can go into that thing. So why don't we talk a little bit about how you got there and your background? I mean,
Right.
South African born, you know, did you always, how did you sort of get into technical stuff? Did you train for that? Was that part of your education? What was it like when you were, you know, you were very young and just starting out?
Okay, well, at school, things like PCs or computer science and stuff didn't exist because it wasn't its time yet. It was the 1980s, and yeah, these things didn't really exist. But the things that did exist were things like your Sinclair ZX Spectrums, your Commodore
That's
64s.
what I had the ZX Spectrum. Did you play Horus Goes Skiing?
Yes, yes. You know, interesting thing about Horus, though, I bought a book by William Tang, who wrote the Horus games, and he was, it was basically a book on how to learn to code in assembly. So that's how I learned assembly, is by copying the Horus games.
So there was like Horus, there was Frogger, the one that I played to death and completed, which I now have like a retro app on the phone that just was did you ever play Manic Miner and Jet Set Willy?
Yes. So yeah, so literally, now what you need to remember is that in South Africa, when you turn 16, then you got conscripted into the military. Right. So you maybe had a year or so to go from, you know, of high school. The moment you finish high school, because the year ends in December, and then January you're in the army. And you know, it just worked like that. Then you had to serve for 2 years until that 2 years is up, and then you can decide, okay, great, I'm gonna go to university. But then you've already been to war and everything else, so you're a completely different person than what you were leaving school. So anyway, so my stroke of luck was that when I joined the military, I actually decided I wanted to make a career of this. I want to be, you know, I'm gonna make a career out of the military. So anyway, so and I was very fortunate to do an apprenticeship in radio and radar, telecommunications and stuff like that. That moved on to things like electronic warfare and so on. So now they started introducing computers and stuff like that, and we were one of the first groups to actually go to university to study this new computer science thing, learn about IP addresses and everything else.
Oh, excellent. Were you really excited? I can imagine. I know you a bit. I can imagine being really excited.
Yeah, so and it's like
pioneers sort of thing.
Yeah, and you know, and the thing there is that, you know, it wasn't for making apps or surf the internet. This was under the banner of electronic warfare.
Yeah.
Right. So already then the perception was skewed, and you know, and then it just fast forward a whole bunch of years, and the internet took off, and you know, I had left the military by then, and then started building call centers for very large organizations like banks and insurance companies and stuff like that. So yeah, and it always had this electronic warfare thing in mind, so that you know, you always knew that somebody was going to attack you or something was going to happen. But again, cyber wasn't formalized at that stage, so
it wasn't even probably referred to as cyber, was it, at the time?
No, it was just IT.
IT, and you, when you say electronic warfare, I mean, I know there's an awful lot of Cary's career that we just can't touch on really. But is that, I mean, what sort of incidents would you see back then? I mean, what were the first, when you say it was warfare, you
Okay.
know, what type of thing would you mean?
If we roll the clock back to say 1989,
Yeah.
that is where the Cold War effectively ended, and the things were like we were well, the country was under heavy sanctions and a lot of threats by the Russians. And so every communications that was being intercepted and so on. So there was a lot of things going on to make, to prevent communications being intercepted,
Okay.
right? Mm-hmm. And when it came down to the internet stuff, a lot of things got intercepted as well as we know now as well. So even fast forward way before Snowden and everything else, all of these things were being built up and started being a thing, becoming a thing, but it wasn't officially a thing. So the most things was about how do I stop or how do we prevent communication from being intercepted in terms of, be it digital, radio, radios, radio and radios in terms of mobile signals, and mobiles were a brand new thing then. Radios, as in radio communications, that could be everything between police radios, emergency services, and everything else. How do we prevent all these things? The messages being in the wrong place, at the wrong time. Yeah. So yeah, it's. If I look back, it's still the same problem now. Over 30 years, it's still the same problem. We're still getting intercepted. We're still trying to defend our communication.
We're recording this, not February 2021, and it just struck me then when you were talking about that of something like solar winds, where it's so broad reaching now because of the way the technology develops and everything, but that if at the time the technology would have been that level of attack. I mean, just is the sort of scope of something like that, and the way that came was so far reaching. Does that? I mean, you must have known that something of that scale was coming if you were tracking interceptions and things all those years ago. I mean, did you see this coming? That this sort of state-sponsored huge attacks that we see these days?
The main thing is that because we had the equipment, we could see that it was going to be quite easy to do something like that.
Yeah.
And over the years, in all the kind of things I've been working on and we've been involved with, one of the more striking things is not everybody is geared up, be it you being a criminal or you being law enforcement. Everybody's not geared up to protect themselves against this. So, and you could foresee quite a lot of stuff, like, as you said, it's like, in my office, I have a crystal ball, and and sometimes I make some wild predictions, and holy moly, by 3, 4, 5 months later, that's happened. Yeah. And it's not because I saw it in a crystal ball, but it's because
it's because it's human nature. It's geopolitics. It's just I suppose what I was getting at was the fact that the tech changes and improves and changes the way that that we access information or disrupt things. Criminals. I don't mean criminals.
No.
But the aims are the same, and the kind of the causes broadly are the same. It's geopolitical wrangling, it's power, it's comms, right? I mean, it just interests me from someone who's had that so many years looking at these things, the progression you must have seen in your career. And
but also the things that annoy me most, I think, is that stuff that happened in the 90s, the early 2000s, and so on, is happening again. So for example, so Trojans and malware and so on, somebody doesn't come up with a brand new scheme on how to do stuff. You know, they will take something that's happened before, modify it, change it, improve it, adapt it to new technology and so on, and then whammo, it's the same old again.
Yeah.
So take, for example, things like Configure. Configure had a massive disruption in the world. So, and it took years to eradicate it, and then it kind of went quiet, and then a couple of years ago, Wannacry arrived.
Yeah.
Exactly the same attack vector, right?
And also exploiting the fact that people weren't. I mean, the thing I always think about Wannacry. So I've just knocked the live recording, just knocked something off the desk. The thing I always think about Wannacry is that the patch was there and just nobody did it. I mean, that was
the patches are always there and nobody does them. And this is part of our education piece with Cyber Essentials and getting the students and stuff involved in being able to run workshops with businesses and so on, is to get them to a stage that says, right, here's a list of 50 hacks that have occurred, right? Let's patch these, let's address these 50 hacks. Common hacks that happen all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like one of the sections is patching, include patching, you know, do it within 14 days. And, you know, and a lot of companies are actually pushing back to, no, 14 days. Pff, no, far too fast. We patch quarterly. And you
quarterly?
Think, yeah.
But you know, do you think this is just naivety though? Because, you know, I was only talking about this the other day and saying that I have a client that asks me in every year to do a physical penetration test, right? They, you know, we get on really well. They're like friends really now, but they never fix. They sort of nod to it and they do a few things. They never fix some of the underlying things.
Hello.
And like 2019 would have been maybe the 4th or 5th time that I'd done the same. It's an annual test.
Yeah.
No, for various reasons, no one recognises me, you know, when I'm on the premises. I'm not going to say why. It's not disguised. It's not. But you know, it's not that. It's the vulnerabilities aren't patched, and it's just like, you know, do you think? You must see this as, it must frustrate you more than anyone, because I know, and we'll talk a little bit about your work with law enforcement and you know, and what you can talk about. But like criminals don't just go, oh, I'll just hack you, or I'll just attack you every quarter. I mean, it's a 24/7, 365 operation. So I'm laughing now because I don't like blaming users for things. Cary, you know, I don't. No. But like, you can't hope to stop people. It's a proper profession.
Yes, and absolutely.
It's a full-time job. You know, it's worth attacking people.
Yeah. So for example, the biggest problem I have with penetration tests and stuff like that is that there is a scope applied to it. Like, this is what we want to test. See these things over here, leave them alone. See these things over here, leave them alone. We only want you to focus on this little bit. And when you get a have a go hacker or script kiddie or a very serious, dedicated person to have a look, they're not going to care about your scope that you had your pen test on. They are going to look at all the other stuff that you missed.
But I've had this. I had a client who said to me, "Look, we know exactly. It's solid. The building's fine. It's solid." And they were right. It was a difficult one. They said, "So we know exactly where you're going to break in. So on your pen test, you're going to break in." And I was like, "You're not going to tell me now." And they went, "You're going to break in through." And there was it was middle of London. And they said to me, "That's where you're going to break in." So I said, "Well, you've told me now."
Yeah, it doesn't help.
And they said, and I said, "So let me find, you know, I might use it. And they went, no, that's not what we want you to do." But that's not attack replication, is it? So
no. But yeah, and similarly, when we look at things like Cyber Essentials and stuff like that, fortunately, most of the networks, even though it's very basic testings, when I say very basic testings, it's vulnerability assessments and so on.
That's what they normally mean when they ask for pen test. It's really a vulnerability assessment.
And most of the times there's the scope is everything. So not focused on a very specific thing, but again, it's fairly light touch, but it's in many cases it's like really, really good in finding out the obvious things that you could have fixed yourself. But hey, here we are, trying to save businesses and so on.
Trying to save the world sometimes.
I know.
Talk to me about your work with the police then. Tell me.
Well,
and I know it's ongoing because you do a lot of training with law enforcement.
Yeah. So
how did all that start?
Right. Yeah. So when I emigrated into to the UK in 2001, it was just before 9/11. Arrived as an immigrant, looking for a job, and I arrived in end of July, and didn't get a job. I managed to get a really fantastic interview with a really good company in December. So, and I found a job. That's fantastic. Woohoo! And the job entailed, they were making a database system for the criminal intelligence groups. So they were making the software how the police and stuff record all of their intelligence and how they do that. Okay, fantastic. But it wasn't just intelligence that used this. Many other groups used it. So in terms of having to understand how people are using the software, you have to spend time with the police, and you learn stuff, and you learn how they want to use the information. As in, it's like, I want to do a query for a firearm license, right? I want to see if somebody is good to have a firearm license. So they would do a specific query and say, yep, this person can have one, or no, it's not having one. So anyway, but it, and it kind of moved out from that. You learned how all of these things work. So, and one of the things that came out quite clearly was, you can give people software. If the training isn't focused on their job, then it's all for naught. Right. So, and I see the very same trend now in terms of cyber security products being sold as the best thing, and it does this and that. But if you're not trained to use it as part of your job, how you do your job is going to be all for naught. So anyway, so the main thing there was, as we were doing the training for intelligence analysis and so on, it became rather obvious that nobody really knew how the software worked or how to use it efficiently, really efficiently. So and I always had the challenge of, when we went to do some training, that there wasn't a training database as such. It was going to be all on live things, on live data. So, and I used to say to folks, right, we're going to do searches. I don't know anything about the data or so on, what you have, but this is how we work. This is what you do to do this X, Y, Z. And I said, within the hour, please don't interrupt. I will stop the class in an hour so you can make phone calls back to your units, because you're going to be wanting to tell them stuff, right? And I tell you, within half an hour, they were bouncing in terms of, oh my gosh, I need to phone. I said, no, you've got another 25 minutes left. I need to say a couple more things.
Yeah.
So it goes on for like 5 days. So anyway, so it then gave me sort of a perspective of that, you can't just tell folks. They have to I'm not going to say join the dots, but they have to make the connection between what they're doing and versus what they're trying to have as an outcome.
Yeah.
Right. So in many cases, moving forward through various different, we'll skip a bit of a chapter through organized crime and so on, and we are back to now in the last 5 years. So where there's been a lot of drive from the government in terms of trying to say to police officers, well, the police are inundated with cybercrime, right? So
drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, so everything is like immediate. The immediate thought is going forensics, digital forensics. It has to go to forensics.
Yeah.
So when you arrive at a police station and you have, I think somebody hacked my phone, somebody hacked my computer, whatever, I'm being intimidated online. The guy behind the desk wouldn't know what to do.
No.
You know, he's going to say, well, I'll escalate it up to forensics, or I'll escalate it up to the investigators and everything else. But where they could have just said, right, guidance, here's some guidance. So have you changed your password? Have you updated your phone? Proper just guidance
standard
on that. So
stuff, but
and not just say, well, I'll hand it over to somebody else, but give them something concrete. Right. So when it comes back to trying to provide some information, some context to the training and the outcomes to do stuff. Right. So, and here we're trying to do it, not the lower level, but the non-technical staff in the police, trying to get them to say, you know, if a member of the public approaches them and says, what can I do? And they say, well, you can go here. Here's a document you can get. Look at this. Here's some advice on this and everything else. And the advice is provided by the National Cybersecurity Center. Is provided by a whole bunch of places. There's loads of places for business and everything else. So
I think that's one of the problems, though, is that there's too many. It's narrowing it down to where the good advice is and the simple to follow advice is, isn't it? I think the cops need to know that. They need to be able to say, like, go to 1 or 2 resources, because if someone just does a search online, I mean, there's so much. I mean, even within the industry, there's so many of us giving advice that you wouldn't know who to listen to if you were just a regular member of the public who had never really been interested before but did a search.
Yes. So you know, and as we get to this stage, again, now the problem comes in that if you were to arrive at, say, a police station, and you put a complaint and they say, well, there's nothing we can do or anything else like that, it can have devastating effects. Depending on who it may be, a vulnerable person, it may be, you know, whatever. So, and we'll probably come around to this again, where, you know, the outcomes can be anything from that person being so stressed and then commit suicide, or, you know, something happens to them or anything else like that. So in all, this is a thing to try and prevent things going the seriously wrong way. Not that it will, but it might.
Yeah,
you know,
but it might, yeah.
Right. So the things are like having better prepared officers, and they are getting exceptionally good training, but their training is now so wide and so much. You know, it's not just walking a beat. It's, you know, when you get approached by somebody and says, my phone's been hacked, what do I do? As I said before, so you can give them resources and they can do their stuff. And if they don't connect those two things and know the outcome or the impact of what those things are going to be, you know, if it means that, you know, in some cases that if we're going to be doing this, our operational security needs to be top notch because somebody's going to die.
Yeah.
Or is the potential for something to go wrong? And this comes back to what we said right in the beginning of this talk, is, you know, you can have a plan, but if you didn't consider all of the bits of your plan, and when you're going to get bopped on the nose, you know, where are all those plans going to go? Are they going to fit in? Are they going to go? And so on.
Security edit. I then asked Cary about getting data from various sources during investigations.
So, for example, coming back to when I was providing intelligence courses, the intelligence analysis courses, so where I didn't know the data that was there, right? So, and you would start off with a search, and that search leads to another search, and another search, and another search, and you would expand on that. The value of having data available, not just in your own databases, but federated databases from other sources, makes a massive difference to the outcome of your investigation. It's a massive, massive, massive difference.
It's just like, I find that you don't know sometimes, and this doesn't sound remotely professional sometimes to people who haven't done it, but sometimes you go, I kind of don't know what I'm looking for, but I'll know when I see it.
Yes. So, well, that kind of question reminds me of another case in Italy. So all of the data was in Italian, and it was a separate database, and because when we're working on databases, it's a case of, I don't know what's in the database, but let's start somewhere and see where it goes.
Yeah. And
it was a particularly troublesome series of events that they were trying to figure out, right? So, and as in the beginning, I said, right, what shall we search on? And the guy says, right, start off with Mario Rossi. And I went, oh, okay, cool. Here we go, boom, boom, boom. And within 10, 15, 20 minutes, we've developed this intelligence picture of this. And that is the moment I thought I was going to die. Because all the officers, well, most of the officers in this small room jumped up. They all had guns. And if you've seen either excited Italians and it's arms and shouting and everything else, I thought, oh, riot, here we go. I'm going to die. And I asked the guy, I says, so I'm having to work through an interpreter. So, and it's like, what's just happened? He says, you got to most of the stuff that they wanted to identify. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, that's where they said I would start. No, you don't understand. Mario Rossi is the equivalent of John Smith in Italy. It's nobody.
Yeah.
Right? So, and if it's nobody, how did you get to the end? And it's like, well, it's not about Mario himself. It's about the stuff that's associated or connected in the data. Yes, it's the pattern of things.
The pattern. It's something being repeated. It's such a hard thing, investigations, and I mean, obviously I've done a lot less of them than you have, but the ones that I've taken part in and the ones where I've found something, it's either been a repetition or it's been omission. Although that's the thing that you don't know. You're not looking for you can't prove a negative. But there's something that there's a gap and like an absence of evidence, and then you just kind of go, why is there just a gap there, or why is there? I mean, I think that's what's so interesting about the work that you do and about intelligence analysis, and generally the way it it's always that last piece, isn't it, that opens everything up.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said with the police in the room, you don't know, they've looked at it probably for months and months, years maybe. Yeah. And it's just that fresh pair of eyes to go on and go, well, what about this? And then that's it, bang, and they're very literally nearly bang, and they're all ready to go, I guess.
Yeah. So a couple of things like in that one thing, quite a few times in courses on data, it was a throwaway comment that sometimes broke a case. It was the missing piece that they were looking for, on how to do it, whether it was a hacking course, whether it was a forensic course, whether it was an incident response, but there was this missing bit that immediately it made the light bulb go up for some of the people, because I've been thinking about this for so long, is like, how could we have missed it? It's so obvious. But, you know, you sometimes have to take a couple of steps back to see the trees.
If you're in it too deep, it's I always talk about it's in the weeds, and just swapping around your angles and swapping investigations, completely new, and just going like, what have you got, and go through it next time. Sometimes explaining it to someone as well and saying, this is it, but we don't know this. I remember explaining it to a client, going, so this is what we've got, and it was good, but we don't know this, and we don't know this, and we've no idea about that, and we've got a theory about that, but I've got nothing to back that theory up. And actually, some of the most robust people, military people who I've gone to and said, look, this is the theory, like, they were really, I'd say, really tough with me, boo-hoo, but like, you know, they really like argued it and went, well, you know, we're not interested. This is not the TV. We're not interested in your damn theory. It's not like, oh, she's got a hunch, it might just be right. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Show me
absolutely.
why. Show me the proof. And I found that, so I'm saying this to you because I'm learning so much from you, I always do, but I found that to be quite challenging, but like really, really good way of upping your game is to go, because then what I learned was, I'm not going to come back to you without some more than, I'm not going to come to you with a hunch, even though that hunch might be right, and they weren't interested whether it was right. Like, you might be right, but show me why. And I'm going, no, it's just something, it's a feeling. Now it's not good enough. So because it's serious stuff, as you say.
Yeah. So and leading on from that, like hunches and stuff. So in one of the units I worked in was based in Hong Kong, and you know, and there was lots of different people from a lot of agencies working together on this.
Alphabet soup.
And it was one of the things that, like you said, a hunch that somebody had noticed that made us do something. And it kind of, when we opened up, it was a massive can of worms, insider threat and else. You know, the threat was from within, and you
said about that, because this is an area I find in our business anyway that's growing all the time. And I say growing, but I think it was always there. I think it's just, there's more about reporting it now. There's more kind of mechanisms within businesses to report insider threats, but probably because of the fines, probably because, in my mind, it's because of GDPR. The businesses are more willing to kind of pursue it and go down those rabbit holes, because more than ever before, they can see a cost of, you know, a data violation is so huge. But you've done work on insider threat, haven't you? And I mean, so do we. We do that to try and pinpoint in a different level to you, obviously. But
no, it's all the same level.
They are some of the, you know.
You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how rudimentary and basic all of these things are. As everybody thinks that, you know, it's all James Bondsy stuff and everything else, but if it comes down to bad cybersecurity, bad operational security, just bad plans.
But I was more referring to the geographical extent of your caper.
So, and you know, and in many cases, when you were trying to help and train folks in how to do stuff, you know, they had very profound outcomes, be it from saving lives of, you know, of vulnerable people. It was trying to detect insider threat. It was the trying to just get a grip on what the criminals are doing, you know, and how skilled that they had become, and the in-house skills were like lagging behind by several miles. So it is really hard, but the one thing I've noticed, and it doesn't matter whether if it's from Singapore to Brazil to to Bangladesh or London or Amsterdam or wherever. Everybody's struggling with the same stuff, you know, and it's not a case of money or anything else. It's not a case of technology or anything else. It's about being able to make sense of it all, being able to consume the information and make it actionable intelligence from that. Yeah. You know, and it's vital for everybody. So I could imagine even for your own jobs that you do, you know, there is information that you get that you have to work through it, get to a plan, get something, and then execute that.
Yeah, I mean, on the behavioural side, I mean, and spotting someone who just, you know, delusional, narcissistic, toxic individual who, you know, who may or may not be doing it for another reason. I mean,
yeah,
that's what when we do Inside the Threat, it's often the thing that we find is someone who would have tendencies anyway towards, I mean, towards criminality, perhaps.
Yeah.
And then will be persuaded on the, you know, on the mice scale. So like money, ideology, coercion, ego. And it's, I mean, I label it differently in our training to make it a bit easier, but that's what we see. We see if it's someone who's been turned as opposed to someone who's in deep cover. Yeah. And it's just, it can be like swimming through treacle. And then suddenly it just goes and it's so. There was a guy I was interviewing once for a long time, and then suddenly it was really obvious, and I was kicking myself as to why it took me so long.
Yeah, you know,
but you forget that that's their whole life is about that facade. Yeah,
and you know, and the point is not to be suspicious of everybody, you know, but it's when something bugs you. You know, just think about it. Think about, you know, why is it bugging you? And not start making your own conspiracy theory.
But what I was going to say is that is the hard thing, because, you know, and I mean, it's always so great to talk about these things. I always, this is Cary and I go down these rabbit holes because I always trying to like squeeze your considerable brain about these things. But one thing that like I still get, and I dismiss it as far as I can, and then it's true, is I get really good law enforcement people and good intelligence people who, you know, who I've met over the years and done various bits of work with. And sometimes it is it's gut. And I hate that. I go, no, if it's your gut, you got to go to your head. You got to get the evidence. You got to go data. You can't just go on a gut feeling, because we make all these, you know, these prejudice assumptions and we draw conclusions based on things. You've got to surely you've got, but then if it still nags, and then it's so annoying that it can be right, even though what I would always instruct a team would be, I'm happy to go with anything that you've got, but that hunch, that gut thing that's not scientific, Cary, is it?
Yeah. So you know, and you know, I'll never forget in one of the units that I participated in, one of the chaps decided he's going to give me a nickname, and he called me Roger Irrelevant. Right.
That's harsh.
And I know. Fortunately, I didn't know who Roger Irrelevant was. I never saw any of his shows.
No.
Joke. Anyway, immigrant.
I thought you were going to say your nickname is Saddam Hussein. That's what you said
Don't even go there. See, every time I go to.
It was just because you said on tinfoil hats, I will cut it out the show.
I know. No, that's fine. Every time I go to a comedy show, and the host will always say, "Oh, I see Saddam has joined us," and I was like, "Oh, okay, you never heard that one before."
I only said it because you said I can edit it. Do you want me to? I'll edit it.
No. But
it's just that you have said it before.
but one of the that's fine. But often mistaken identity happens quite a lot. especially with me. So in the one instance, I was doing a thing in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, and we were driving from the airport to the hotel, and I see these posters on the lampposts, and asked what the posters were for. It says, no, there's an election going on, and the guy on the posters had we looked very similar, really similar.
Oh.
Right. So fast forward us arriving at the hotel, the absolute scramble that happened at the hotel because
did you get like the best table? And
no, it's just like all the staff had just arrived, and it's like quickly everybody form a line, and everybody's greeting and everything else, and I had no idea what the heck was on. And until I checked in, and I was like, it's okay, guys, it's not him. I'm like, who? Says no, the political candidate that
it's yes, it's not me, but can I please have his table?
But those were the fun things, though. So
well, it's always great talking to you. It's been what a career. I mean, and I know that one of your big bugbears is, just to finish this off, really, one of your big bugbears is complacency about security, and we've touched on it, but you do. I think the job that you're doing and the initiatives that you've got on there, you're doing everything you can to address it.
Yeah, because everybody suffers from it.
Yeah,
everybody suffers from it.
Security fatigue mixed with lockdown fatigue. Now, having said that, one of the things that you are famous for, sir, I know you've got some snow up there where you live, right?
Yes.
But it doesn't stop you doing a certain activity.
No, it does not.
So we get all our barbecue advice from Mr. Hendriks here, because there's a big South African tradition, isn't it, the barbecue and everything.
Oh, yes.
So how was the one in the snow earlier this week? Yesterday?
Well, yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah.
But was by far not the only one. No, it's always, it's always really good, always good fun. And for me, it's that little bit of ray of sunshine.
Does it remind you of home?
Yeah, but also, everybody assumes or likes, when they go out, they always have the steak that's all flame grilled and everything else, or they go somewhere else to have the flame grilled chicken or the everything nice. And this is just something that we do a lot, is barbecuing. So it could be.
What, I was going to say, what's your tips then for because we burn my husband does this quite well, but I'm rubbish.
Okay, good tools for a start. The right equipment, right?
Does that include the right barbie?
Yeah.
Is that
yeah. Gas. Don't waste your time. Gas is pointless in Scotland. It just it may work that few days in the summer when it's warm enough, but gas doesn't really work. So a barbecue like a Weber type barbecue, must be a fire chimney, a smoke. No, it's not a smoke chimney, but it's like a fire chimney.
It's like a flue.
No. It's a thing's about that size. You chuck your coals in the top, and you put a little firelight at the bottom, and it does its thing. And the fire is ready in like 15 minutes. You chuck it out into the barbecue, clean the grill, and off you go. So it's not a long drawn out affair at all. So
that's a revolution, because it normally takes at least 40 minutes to get them to that white stage, but then they're so hot that the coals are so hot that we tend to burn almost everything.
Yeah. So it is, it's just getting the technique right. And so the other major thing to have, while barbecuing, is have a hot side and a cold side.
Yes.
It's not. So you have one side with coals
You have
and
said
the other
this
side with
before.
no coals.
You
So
have
if you
said
cook
this before.
sausages, and ironically, if you cook sausages, they go on the cold side. They don't go over the they don't go over the coals, because then you get black ones
You see, this
instead
is
of
so,
nice
it's so
juicy brown
tempting.
ones.
It's so tempting to put this out as a trailer, because there's this great interview that you've just given all about security intelligence analysis and, you know, and gaps in knowledge in the industry and training and everything. But the thing that's like the most useful, probably, or the things that people talk about is like, you need a hot side and a cold side. You know, Jenny, no.
Yeah.
I do know, but only recently.
On one of the funniest things that I've ever had to do, I had to give an intelligence briefing on something, and we could choose our own topic.
Yes.
Right. And I gave an entire intelligence briefing on barbecuing.
Which I bet everybody loved. Oh, Cary, listen, it's just been absolutely awesome talking to you. Where can people find you, follow your initiative, support you?
Right. I'm on Twitter on FIGJAM, and that's an acronym, but that is an acronym. And you can Google your own acronym. So, and then on LinkedIn, you can either Google me as Cary Hendriks, or just Google FIGJAM, and I'll be on there as well.
Well, listen, Cary, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure everybody will be happy to see you on Tinfoil Hat Club again soon. But for now, thank you so much for being a guest on King Factor Security Podcast.
It's always been fantastic for having me. Thank you so much.